My name is Aurora. I am 35 years old, and I live in a simple apartment in the city. The sound of a silver fork hitting a china plate usually signals the end of a meal. At my parents' house, it usually signaled the beginning of an attack. We were having cheesecake. My 10-year-old son Marcus was pushing the crust around his plate. He was quiet. He is always quiet here. He knows the rules of this house better than I do. Stay small, say little, and try not to be a target. My sister, Lauren, wiped her mouth with a napkin. She looked at Marcus, then she looked at me with that smile she always uses. It is a smile that looks nice but feels like ice. "You know, Aurora," she said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I was watching Marcus all night. He seems so disconnected." She took a slow sip of wine and smirked over the rim of the glass. "Maybe if your son had 2 parents, he wouldn't be such a mess." The room went deadly silent. I looked at my mother. She didn't scold Lauren. She just nodded as if Lauren had stated a simple fact like the weather forecast. I looked at my father. He kept eating, refusing to make eye contact. Then I looked at Marcus. His ears turned bright red. He put his fork down gently and shrank into his chair, trying to disappear. For 4 years since my husband died, I have swallowed every insult. I have stayed silent to keep the peace. But looking at my son's humiliated face, I felt something inside me harden. It wasn't anger. It was resolve. Peace is expensive. And tonight, I decided I was done paying for it. But before I tell how everything flipped, like and subscribe and tell me in the comment where are you watching from. My name is Aurora. I am 35 years old. To understand why that dinner was the end, you have to understand the beginning. You have to understand the last 4 years of my life. It started on a Tuesday. Tuesdays are supposed to be boring. They are supposed to be for grocery shopping and laundry. But that Tuesday was the day 2 police officers knocked on my door. They took their hats off. I knew right away. You don't take your hat off for good news. They told me my husband, Greg, was gone. A truck had swerved. It was instant. That was the moment my life broke into 2 pieces, before and after. In the before, I was just Aurora. I was happy. Greg and I weren't rich, but we were solid. We paid our bills. We went to the movies on Fridays. We laughed a lot. We were building a good life for Marcus. In the after, I became something else to my family. I became poor Aurora. I became a project. I became a charity case. At the funeral, my sister Lauren didn't hold my hand. She didn't ask me how I was breathing when it felt like there was no air in the room. Instead, she stood by the casket and told everyone how strong she was for supporting me. She wore a dress that was a little too tight, a little too fancy for a funeral. She cried loudly, even though she and Greg had never really gotten along. She made sure everyone saw her tears. My mother patted my back. It wasn't a comforting pat. It was a heavy, rhythmic thud, like she was trying to burp a baby. "Don't worry, Aurora," she said in front of the neighbors. "We will make sure you don't end up on the street. We know Greg didn't leave you with much." She said it loud enough for the whole room to hear. Shame washed over me, hot and prickly. Greg had left me with life insurance. He had left me with love. But to them, without a husband, I was instantly a failure. For the next 4 years, this became the pattern. I moved into a smaller apartment. It was a choice. I wanted to save money. I wanted to be smart. I wanted to put money away for Marcus's college. But my family decided I moved because I was destitute. "Oh, look at this place," Lauren said the first time she visited. She didn't take off her shoes. She walked around my living room like she was afraid she might catch a disease from my floor. "It's so cozy, so compact. Good for you, Aurora, making do with less." "It has 2 bedrooms, Lauren." "It's fine," I said. "Of course," she said, giving me that pitying smile. "It's brave." They never asked to see my bank statements. They never asked about my job. I was working hard. I had gone back to work at the bank. I was climbing the ladder. I was good with numbers. I was good with people. But they didn't want to know that. They wanted the story of the struggling widow. It made them feel better about themselves. Every Sunday, we went to my parents' house for dinner. And every Sunday, it was a lesson in how to be small. They treated Marcus like he was broken, too. "Here, Marcus," my father would say, handing him $5. "Go buy yourself a candy bar. I know your mom can't do much for you right now." I wanted to scream. I bought Marcus candy. I bought him video games. I bought him new sneakers. But I couldn't say that. If I said that, I was being ungrateful. If I said that, I was being difficult. So I swallowed it. I swallowed the anger like a pill that got stuck in my throat. Lauren was the star. Lauren had a husband, David. David was in sales. He drove a big leased car. Lauren stayed home. She was a homemaker. According to my mother, this was the highest calling. Lauren had 2 kids, twins, a boy and a girl. They were perfect. They took piano lessons. They took French lessons. They wore matching outfits for holiday cards. Lauren is just so capable, my mother would say while we washed dishes. She keeps such a beautiful home. It's a lot of work managing success. Then she would look at me, scrubbing a pot. But you're doing your best, Aurora, we know that. My best was never enough. My best was invisible. The insults were never direct. That's the thing about polite cruelty. If you call them out on it, they call you crazy. They say you are too sensitive. For example, last Christmas, Lauren gave me a gift card to a grocery store. I just thought, she said in front of everyone, that this would help with the essentials. You know, milk, eggs. So you don't have to worry this month. I was wearing a silk blouse I had bought for myself with my bonus check. A bonus check that was $5,000. But I took the $50 gift card. I said thank you. See, my father said, nodding at Lauren. Your sister is so thoughtful. You should be grateful, Aurora. Grateful. That was the word they used to chain me down. Be grateful we feed you on Sundays. Be grateful we tolerate your sad little life. Be grateful we let you sit at the table with the winners. I looked at Marcus during those years. I saw him changing. He used to be loud. He used to run and jump. But in that house, he became a shadow. He learned that if he spoke, someone would correct him. If he laughed, someone would tell him to settle down. He needs a father figure, David would say, clapping a hand on Marcus's shoulder, a little too hard. Boy needs to toughen up. He's too soft, too much time with his mother. Marcus would look at the floor. He would look at his shoes. It broke my heart every single week. But I kept going. I told myself it was for the family. I told myself that having grandparents was important for Marcus. I told myself that eventually they would see the truth. I was wrong. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the lie. The lie made them feel powerful. The lie made Lauren feel like a queen and me like a peasant. And I let them do it. For 4 long years, I let them do it. Until tonight. The Sunday of the dinner started like all the others, but the air felt heavier. Maybe it was the heat. It was a humid evening. Or maybe it was just my limit approaching, even if I didn't know it yet. We arrived at my parents' house at 5 p.m. sharp. Being late was a sin. Lauren, of course, arrived at 5:15 p.m., but for her, it was an entrance. Traffic was a nightmare, Lauren announced, breezing through the door. She tossed her keys on the side table. She didn't apologize. She just expected us to be happy she had arrived. David followed her, carrying bottles of wine. Expensive wine. Or at least wine with fancy labels. Only the best for the family, David said, booming his voice. He didn't look at me. He rarely looked at me. I was part of the furniture. We sat in the living room first. This was the ritual. We had to sit and listen to Lauren's week. We are exhausted, Lauren sighed, draping herself over the sofa. Just exhausted. We're planning the trip to Italy for next summer, and the logistics are a nightmare. First class is so booked up already. Italy, my mother gasped, clasping her hands. Oh, Lauren, how wonderful. You work so hard, you deserve it. I sat in the corner chair. I sipped water. I had been to Italy 2 years ago. I took Marcus. We went to Rome and Florence. We ate gelato every day. I paid for it in cash. I never told my family. I knew if I told them, they would say I was being irresponsible with my pennies. So I let them believe I had gone camping. Aurora, Lauren said, turning to me. I can probably bring you back a souvenir, maybe a keychain or something. That would be nice, I said. My voice was flat. Then we moved to the dining room. The table was set with the good china. My mother had made a roast. It smelled rich and salty. The conversation continued to revolve around Lauren. Her twins, Sophie and Liam, were not there. They were at a leadership camp. They are just thriving, Lauren said, cutting her meat. Sophie is top of her class in violin. And Liam, well, the coaches say he's a natural athlete, a natural leader just like his father. David beamed. He chewed with his mouth open just a little. Genes, babe. It's all genes. Then the focus shifted. The spotlight moved from the golden children to the problem child, to Marcus. Marcus was sitting next to me. He was eating quietly. He had cut his meat into tiny, perfect squares. He was trying to be invisible. So Marcus, Lauren said, her voice changed pitch. It went from bragging to that fake, sugary concern. How is school? Still struggling with math? Marcus looked up, startled. I got a B on my last test. A B, Lauren chuckled. It wasn't a nice laugh. Well, that's passing, I suppose. Sophie got an A+, but she studies with a tutor 3 times a week. I guess you don't have those resources. He's doing fine, I said. I tried to keep my voice steady. He's on the honor roll. Honor roll? My father scoffed. He reached for the bread. Honor rolls aren't what they used to be, Aurora. They give those out to everyone now, participation trophies. It's not a participation trophy, Marcus said softly. I worked hard. Speak up, son, David barked. Don't mumble, men don't mumble, Marcus flinched. He dropped his fork. It clattered loudly on the plate. See, Lauren said, gesturing with her wine glass. He's so jumpy, he's so withdrawn. This is where the conversation usually ended. They would make their dig, and I would change the subject. I would ask about the weather, I would ask about the garden. But tonight, Lauren didn't stop. She was drunk on her own superiority. She wanted more. I was talking to my friend Susan the other day, Lauren said, looking around the table to make sure she had everyone's attention. She's a child psychologist. I described Marcus to her. My blood went cold. You talked to a stranger about my son. She's not a stranger, she's a professional, Lauren snapped. And she agreed with me. She said boys raised by single mothers often have these deficits. They lack confidence. They lack drive. They end up like Marcus. Lauren, I said, a warning tone entering my voice. I'm just trying to help Aurora, she exclaimed, looking at our parents for support. Someone has to say it. You're too soft on him. You're babying him because you feel guilty about Greg. That is enough, I said. Is it? Lauren leaned forward. Her eyes were cruel. Look at him, Aurora. He can't even look me in the eye. He's 10 years old and he acts like a frightened rabbit. Maybe if your son had 2 parents, he wouldn't be such a mess. That was the moment. The room went silent. My mother nodded. Lauren is just concerned, Aurora. She wants what's best. My father kept eating. Marcus looked at me. His eyes were wide. They were wet. He looked like he was waiting for me to apologize to them. He was waiting for me to smooth it over. He was waiting for me to accept the insult like I always did. I looked at his plate. He hadn't touched his food since the attack started. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was a quiet click, like a lock turning. I put my napkin on the table. I didn't throw it. I placed it gently next to my plate. Excuse me, I said. Running away to cry? Lauren asked, smirking. Go ahead, we'll save you some dessert. I didn't answer. I stood up. My legs felt strong. I wasn't shaking. For the first time in 4 years, I wasn't shaking. I walked out of the dining room. I walked to the hallway where I had left my purse. I wasn't running away. I was getting ammunition. The hallway was cool. I took a deep breath. I could hear them talking in the dining room. She's so dramatic, Lauren was saying. I try to give her advice and she falls apart. It's pathetic, really. She's had a hard time, my mother said, but her voice lacked conviction. But you're right, Lauren. She needs to face reality about that boy. I opened my large tote bag. Inside, nestled between my wallet and a pack of tissues, was a manila folder. It was plain. It was beige. It looked like nothing special. But inside that folder was a nuclear bomb. I had brought it today for a different reason. I had planned to talk to my father privately after dinner. I wanted to show him something about the family trust, but plans change. I picked up the folder. It felt heavy in my hand. I walked back into the dining room. They stopped talking when I entered. They expected me to have red eyes. They expected me to look defeated. I didn't. I looked calm. I felt a strange, cold clarity. I walked to the table. I didn't sit down. I stood at the head of the table between my mother and father. I'm not dramatic, Lauren, I said. My voice was even. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a knife. Oh, please, Lauren rolled her eyes. Sit down, Aurora. You're making a scene. I think you should listen, I said. I placed the folder on the table. I slid it across the white tablecloth. It stopped right in front of Lauren's wine glass. What is this? She asked. She looked at it with disgust. More sketches from Marcus. I don't need. Open it, I said. Lauren looked at David. David shrugged. He looked bored. Lauren sighed an exaggerated theatrical sigh. She opened the folder. The first page was a letter. It had a red stamp on it. Lauren looked at it. She frowned. She squinted, then her face changed. The smirk vanished. Her skin, usually tanned and glowing, turned a pale, sickly gray. What? She started. Her voice wavered. Where did you get this? Read it, I said. She didn't read it. She slammed the folder shut. This is private, she screamed. How dare you, David, she... What is it? My father asked. He put his fork down. Lauren, what is going on? Nothing, Lauren yelled. She put her hand over the folder. It's nothing. Aurora is just snooping. She's jealous. I reached out and flipped the folder open again. I pointed to the document. It's a foreclosure notice, I said. I looked at my parents. Lauren and David haven't paid their mortgage in 3 months. The bank has started proceedings to take their house. The silence that followed was different than before. It wasn't the silence of awkwardness. It was the silence of shock. That's impossible, my mother said. She laughed nervously. Lauren lives in the estates. David is a top salesman. David lost his job 6 months ago, I said. I looked at David. He was staring at his wine glass, his face bright red. He couldn't look at anyone. He was fired for padding his expense reports. Fraud. My father looked at David. Is this true? David didn't answer. He just drank the rest of his wine in one gulp. And Lauren, I continued, keeping my eyes on my sister. You aren't planning a trip to Italy. You maxed out your credit cards 2 months ago trying to keep up appearances. You can't even afford the gas to get to the airport. Shut up, Lauren shrieked. Tears started to stream down her face. Not fake tears this time, real, ugly tears of panic. You don't know anything, we just had a cash flow issue. It's temporary. It's not temporary, I said. I saw the numbers, you are drowning. My mother looked like she was going to faint. But the perfect household, the violin lessons, the clothes. All debt, I said. All bought with money they don't have, to impress you, to make me feel small. I looked at Marcus. He was watching me with wide eyes. He wasn't scared anymore. He looked impressed. You called my son a mess, I said to Lauren. You called him broken because he doesn't have a father, but at least he has a home that is paid for, a home that isn't built on lies. You think you're so smart, Lauren spat, just because you found some papers. You're still a nobody, Aurora. You're still the poor widow living in a shoebox. I smiled. It was a cold smile. Am I asked. I reached into the folder and pulled out the second document. The second document was a spreadsheet. It was a printout from my bank. I held it up. Do you know why you haven't been evicted yet, Lauren? I asked. She stared at me, her mouth open. Her mascara was running down her cheeks. She looked like a melting wax doll. Because the bank made a mistake, she whispered. No, I said. Banks don't make mistakes like that. You haven't been evicted because someone has been paying the minimum balance on your arrears for the last 4 months. Someone paid $1,200 a month to keep the wolves away. I dropped the paper on top of the foreclosure notice. It was me, I said. My mother gasped. You, Aurora. But you don't have any money, my father said, confused. We have to give Marcus $5 for candy. I have the money, I said. I paid it because of the twins, Sophie and Liam. They are innocent. I didn't want my niece and nephew to come home from school and find a padlock on the door. I did it for them, not for you. Lauren looked at the paper. She saw the transfer numbers. She saw my name. You knew, she whispered. You knew this whole time, and you let me sit here and brag. You let me talk about Italy. I let you dig your own hole, I said. I was waiting for you to show a single ounce of kindness. Just one moment where you treated me or my son with respect. If you had been kind, I would have kept helping. I would have helped you figure this out. I paused. I looked at Marcus. I remembered the way he shrank in his chair when she called him a mess. But you weren't kind, I said. You were cruel. You used my son's pain to make yourself feel big. I took a deep breath. This was the part that was going to hurt them the most. This morning, I said, my voice steady, I called the bank. I told them to reverse the last 4 payments. I told them they were unauthorized transfers. David's head snapped up. You did what? I reversed the payments, I repeated. Since you like to talk about 2 parents managing a household, I figured you 2 could handle it. No, David said. He stood up. He was panic-stricken. Aurora, you can't. If those payments are reversed, the total arrears hit immediately. We'll be in default, immediate default. I know, I said. I'm a loan officer. I know exactly how it works. How much? My father asked. His voice was shaking. How much do they owe now? I looked at the paper. I didn't need to look. I had the number memorized. $18,662, I said. Due immediately. Or the sheriff comes on Tuesday. The number hung in the air. $18,662. To my parents, who thought I was destitute, it was an impossible number. To Lauren and David, it was a death sentence for their lifestyle. You have to fix it, Lauren pleaded. She reached out and grabbed my arm. Her grip was desperate. Aurora, please, reauthorize the payments. I'll pay you back, I swear. Don't let us lose the house. Think of the twins. I pulled my arm away. I brushed the spot where she had touched me. I am thinking of the twins, I said. Maybe if they have parents who are honest, they won't grow up to be bullies. Mom. Dad, Lauren shrieked, turning to our parents. Make her fix it, she's ruining us. My mother looked at me. She looked different. She didn't look at me with pity anymore. She looked at me with fear. She realized she didn't know the woman standing in front of her. She didn't know me at all. Aurora, my mother said softly. This is too harsh. We are family. Family, I laughed. It was a short, dry sound. Family doesn't humiliate a 10-year-old boy at dinner. Family doesn't kick a widow when she's down just to feel tall. I looked at my father. You agreed with her, Dad. You nodded when she insulted Marcus. You let it happen. He looked down at his plate. He couldn't meet my eyes. So don't talk to me about family, I said. The only family I have to worry about is standing right there. I pointed to Marcus. And Marcus, I said, looking at my son, is done being your punching bag. I turned back to Lauren. The money is gone, Lauren. It's back in my account. You have until Tuesday to find $18,000. Maybe you can return those designer shoes you're wearing. That might cover the interest. The room was silent again. But this time, I wasn't the victim. I was the one holding the cards, and I wasn't done yet. I had one more truth to tell. The truth about who I really was. The silence in the room was heavy. It felt like the air had been sucked out. Lauren was still staring at the bank papers, her face pale. David was looking at the floor, defeated. My parents were looking at me like I was a stranger who had just walked in off the street. But I wasn't done. The money was just the beginning. The money was the weapon I used to get their attention. Now that I had their attention, I was going to talk about what really mattered. I turned my back on Lauren and looked at my mother. You are shocked about the money, I said. You are shocked that Lauren is broke and I am the one paying her bills. But you shouldn't be shocked, you should be ashamed. My mother blinked. Ashamed, Aurora, we didn't know. I'm not talking about the money, I interrupted her. My voice was calm, but it felt hot in my throat. I am talking about Marcus. I walked over to Marcus's chair. I put my hand on his shoulder. He flinched at first, then he relaxed. He leaned into my side. He needed to know I was there. He needed to know I wasn't going to let them hurt him anymore. For 4 years, I said, looking around the table, I have sat in this room and watched you tear my son apart. You didn't use fists. You used words. You used looks, you used silence. We love Marcus, my father said weakly. He's our grandson. Do you? I asked. Do you love him, or do you tolerate him? I pointed at Lauren. Tonight, you said he was a mess. You said he was half a family. You said that because his father died, he is broken. Lauren sniffled. She wiped her nose with a napkin. I was concerned. It's not normal for a boy to be so quiet. He is quiet because he is afraid of you, I said. He is quiet because every time he speaks, you correct him, you compare him to your children, you make him feel small so you can feel big. I took a deep breath. I was about to say something I had never told anyone. It was a secret that hurt me every single day. Last month, I said, my voice trembling just a little, Marcus came into my room at 2 in the morning. He was crying. I looked down at Marcus. He was looking at his hands. I squeezed his shoulder gently. He asked me a question, I continued. He asked me if his dad died because he was a bad kid. He asked if God took his father away as a punishment. My mother gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh no, that's terrible. Yes, it is terrible, I said. But do you know why he thought that? He thought that because of you, because of this family. I looked at David. You told him he needed to man up. You told him he was soft. You made him feel like his grief was a weakness. You made a 10-year-old boy feel like he wasn't enough of a man to deserve a father. David shifted in his chair. He looked uncomfortable. I was just trying to help the boy. He needs guidance. He doesn't need your guidance, I snapped. You are a liar and a fraud who can't even pay his own mortgage. What can you possibly teach my son about being a man? David's face turned purple. He opened his mouth to shout, but he closed it again. He knew I had the proof in the folder. He had no power here anymore. I turned back to Lauren. She was crying now. It was a soft, pitying cry. I didn't mean it like that, she sobbed. I just wanted him to be happy. I wanted him to be like Sophie and Liam. He will never be like them, I said. And thank God for that. My son is kind. My son is gentle. My son shares his lunch with kids who don't have food. He doesn't need to be loud to be strong. He doesn't need to brag to be important. I looked at my parents. You let this happen, I said. Every Sunday. You watched Lauren make fun of his clothes. You watched David make fun of his grades, and you did nothing. You nodded, you laughed. We didn't want to cause a fight, my father said. We wanted peace. You wanted peace for yourselves, I said. You didn't care that your peace was costing my son his self-esteem. You sacrificed Marcus so you could pretend everything was perfect. I felt a tear run down my cheek. I wiped it away angrily. I wasn't crying for me. I was crying for the years we had wasted trying to please these people. Marcus asked me if he was half a family, I said, because you told him that. You told him that without a dad, he is incomplete. I leaned down and looked Marcus in the eye. I wanted him to hear this. I wanted everyone to hear this. We are not half a family, I said clearly. We are a whole family. Just me and you, we are enough, we have love, we have truth, and that is more than anyone at this table has. Lauren was sobbing harder now. Aurora, stop, please, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I looked at her. Her face was red and blotchy. For the first time in her life, she looked small. You're not sorry you hurt him, I said coldly. You're sorry I exposed you. You're sorry you need money. There is a difference. I stood up straight. I felt tall. I felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. I am done defending him to you, I said. I am done explaining why he is quiet. I am done apologizing for his existence. He is perfect exactly the way he is. The room was silent. No one ate. No one drank. The roast beef sat cold on the platter. The expensive wine sat untouched in the glasses. I had broken the rules. I had shattered the picture of the happy family, and I didn't regret it for a second. My mother looked at me with confusion. She was trying to put the puzzle pieces together in her head. She looked at the foreclosure notice. Then she looked at my simple dress. Then she looked at my face. But Aurora, she said, her voice shaking. I don't understand. If you were paying Lauren's mortgage, where did you get the money? We thought you were struggling. You thought I was struggling because you wanted me to struggle, I said. It fit your story. Lauren was the success and I was the tragedy. It made you feel comfortable. I walked back to the head of the table. I picked up my glass of water and took a sip. It was cool and refreshing. I am not a bank teller, Mom, I said. I haven't been a teller for 3 years. But you work at the bank, my father said. You said you work at the branch downtown. I do work at the branch downtown, I said. I am the regional senior loan officer. I manage a portfolio of over $50 million. I approve loans for businesses. I approve mortgages for houses 3 times the size of this one. My father's jaw dropped. Senior loan officer, but you never said. I tried to tell you, I said. 2 years ago when I got the promotion, I came to dinner. I was so excited. I brought a bottle of champagne. I looked at Lauren. Do you remember that night, Lauren? Lauren didn't look up. She shook her head. I remember, I said. I started to tell everyone my good news, and you interrupted me. You started talking about how Sophie got a solo in the choir. You talked for 20 minutes. By the time you were done, everyone had forgotten I had something to say, so I put the champagne back in my bag and I took it home. We didn't know, my mother whispered. You didn't ask, I said. You never asked, you assumed. You saw me wearing simple clothes, so you assumed I was poor. You saw me driving an older car, so you assumed I couldn't afford a new one. Why didn't you buy a new car? David asked. He sounded bitter. If you're making so much money, why do you drive that junk? Because I don't care about cars, I said. I care about security. I care about my son's future. I looked at my parents. I wanted them to understand the magnitude of their mistake. I make 6 figures, I said. I make more than David made even when he had a job. I make more than both of you combined. The silence in the room changed again. It wasn't just shock anymore, it was embarrassment. My parents realized they had been giving $5 to the wealthiest person at the table. And my apartment, I continued. The shoebox you all laugh at. The one Lauren called cute and cozy like it was a dollhouse. It's a rental, Lauren mumbled. It's just an apartment. I own it, I said. I bought it 3 years ago. I paid cash. I don't have a mortgage. I don't have rent. I own every inch of it. My mother looked like she was going to be sick. You own it outright? Yes, I said. And I could buy a house in the estates if I wanted to. I could buy a house next to Lauren's. But I don't want to live in a big empty house just to impress people I don't like. I chose a small place so I could save money for Marcus, so I could travel with him, so we could be free. I looked at David. That's what real success looks like, David. It's not a leased BMW. It's not a trip to Italy on a credit card. It's freedom. It's knowing that if I lose my job tomorrow, my son and I will still be fine. We will never be on the street. I saw the realization hit them. They had spent 4 years looking down on me. They had treated me like a charity case. They had felt superior because they had things and I didn't. But now they knew. The things were fake. Lauren's life was a house of cards. My life was built on stone. Why didn't you tell us? My father asked. There was hurt in his voice. Why did you let us treat you like that? I wanted to see who you really were, I said. If I had told you I had money, you would have treated me better. You would have respected me. But it would have been fake. You would have respected the money, not me. I paused. I wanted to see if you could love me when I had nothing. I wanted to see if you could be kind to Marcus just because he is your grandson, not because his mother is rich. I looked at them with sadness. And I got my answer. You couldn't do it, you couldn't be kind, you only respect power, you only respect money. Lauren looked up at me. Her eyes were desperate. She saw a lifeline. Aurora, she said, if you have so much money, if you are doing so well, then you can help us. You can fix this. Please, it's just $18,000. That's nothing to you now. She reached out her hand across the table. We are sisters. You can't let us lose the house. Think of how it will look. I looked at her hand. Her nails were perfectly manicured. They probably cost $50. Money she didn't have. I looked at her face. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for a check. She hadn't learned anything. She still thought she was entitled to my help. I smiled. It was a sad smile. You're right, Lauren, I said. It is nothing to me. I could write a check right now and not even notice the money is gone. Her face lit up with hope. Then you'll do it. You'll help. I shook my head. I reached into the folder one last time. I pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app. I tapped on the savings account section. I turned the phone around and held it in front of Lauren's face. Then I showed it to David. Then I walked around and showed it to my parents. The screen showed a balance of $230,450. $230,000, I said. That is just my savings. That doesn't count my retirement. That doesn't count Marcus's college fund. My father stared at the screen. He looked like he was looking at a ghost. He had never seen that much money in one place. Aurora, he whispered. That's a fortune. It's security, I said. It's what happens when you don't spend money trying to look rich. I put the phone back in my pocket. I could save you, Lauren, I said. I could pay your arrears. I could pay your mortgage for the next year. I could save your house. I could save your reputation. Lauren nodded eagerly. Yes, yes, please, Aurora, I'm begging you. But I won't, I said. The hope on Lauren's face shattered. It turned into pure horror. What? Why, you have it, you just showed us. Because my son is watching, I said. I stepped back to Marcus's chair. I put my hands on his shoulders. He felt solid. He felt real. My son is watching me, I repeated. He is learning how the world works. If I pay your bills, if I save you after everything you did to him, what am I teaching him? I looked at Marcus. I would be teaching him that you can be cruel to people and still get rewarded. I would be teaching him that bullies win. I would be teaching him that money matters more than self-respect. I looked back at Lauren. I love my son too much to teach him that. But we're family, my mother cried. You can't just let them fall. They let themselves fall, I said. They spent money they didn't have. They lied, they judged. Now they have to face the consequences. I looked at David. You said Marcus needs to learn to be a man. Well, this is a lesson for you, David. A real man pays his own debts. A real man protects his family by being honest, not by stealing. David put his head in his hands. He was weeping. And you, I said to my parents. You chose a side. You chose the shiny, perfect family. You chose the lies. Now you have to live with that choice. I grabbed my purse. I grabbed the folder from the table. I didn't want to leave it there. I didn't want them to have anything of mine. Come on, Marcus, I said. We're leaving. Marcus stood up immediately. He didn't hesitate. He didn't look back at his grandparents. He didn't say goodbye. He just stood by my side, ready to go. Aurora, wait, my father called out. He stood up. He looked old. He looked tired. If you leave, if you walk out that door, don't expect us to welcome you back. It was a threat. It was the same threat he had used my whole life to keep me in line. Do what we say or you are out. I stopped at the doorway. I turned around. I looked at the dining room. It looked like a battlefield. The fancy dinner was ruined. The family was broken. Dad, I said calmly, I'm not waiting to be welcomed back. I'm quitting. Quitting? He asked. I'm resigning from this family, I said. I'm firing you, all of you. You can't do that, my mother sobbed. I just did, I said. We won't be here next Sunday, we won't be here for Christmas, we won't be here for birthdays. I am taking my son, and I am taking my piece, and I am going home. You'll regret this, Lauren screamed. She was angry now, the begging was over. You'll be alone, you'll be a lonely old woman with nothing but your money. I won't be alone, I said. I have Marcus, and I have myself, and for the first time in 4 years I like myself. I opened the front door. The evening air rushed in. It smelled like rain, it smelled like fresh air. Goodbye, I said. I didn't slam the door. I closed it firmly. Click, it was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. We walked to the car in silence. My car was a 5-year-old Honda. It was clean and reliable. It was parked next to David's leased BMW. The BMW looked aggressive and shiny. My car just looked like a car. I unlocked the doors. We got in. I sat in the driver's seat and put the key in the ignition, but I didn't turn it. My hands were shaking. Now that the adrenaline was fading, my body was reacting. I gripped the steering wheel tight to stop the shaking. I took deep breaths. In, out, in, out. I was afraid to look at Marcus. I was afraid I had scared him. I had never yelled like that before. I had never been so cold. I was afraid he would think I was mean. Marcus, I said softly, are you okay? I turned my head to look at him in the passenger seat. He wasn't looking out the window. He was looking at me. His eyes were bright. There was a look on his face I hadn't seen in a long time. Mom, he said, I'm sorry about all that, I started to say. I know it was loud, I know it was scary, I shouldn't have. You stood up for us, Marcus said. He cut me off. His voice was strong. What? I asked. You stood up for us, he repeated. You told them to stop. I did, I said. I had to, they were wrong. I know, he said, but nobody ever tells them to stop. Aunt Lauren always wins. Grandpa always agrees with her, but today you made them stop. He looked down at his lap. He was twisting the seatbelt strap in his fingers. Mom, he asked. Yes, honey. Is it true, he asked. What you said. That I'm not a mess. My heart broke all over again. I unbuckled my seatbelt and reached over to him. I grabbed his hand. Oh, Marcus, I said, look at me. He looked up. You are the furthest thing from a mess, I said. You are smart, you are funny, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. Dad would be so proud of you, he loved you so much. Aunt Lauren said, his voice trailed off. Aunt Lauren is unhappy, I said. She is unhappy with her life, so she tries to make everyone else unhappy too. Everything she said about you was a lie. She was just trying to hurt me. She said I have no dad, he whispered. You have a dad, I said firmly. He is in your heart, he is in your memories, and you have me, am I not enough? Marcus smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. You're enough, he said. You're really strong, Mom. You were like a superhero in there. I laughed. It was a wet laugh, full of tears. A superhero with a bank statement? Yeah, he grinned. You were like, bam, take that, $18,000. We both started laughing. It was a release. The tension in the car evaporated. We laughed until our sides hurt. We laughed at the look on David's face. We laughed at the silence in the room. Did you see Grandma's face? Marcus giggled. She looked like she swallowed a lemon. She did, I agreed. She really did. I wiped my eyes. I turned the key. The engine purred to life. Mom, Marcus said as I put the car in reverse. Yeah. Are we really not going back? He asked. Like ever, I stopped the car for a second. I looked at the big house. The lights were on in the dining room. I could imagine them in there, arguing, blaming each other, panicking about the money. Do you want to go back? I asked him. Do you miss them? Marcus thought for a moment. He looked at the house, then he looked at me. No, he said honestly. I always got a stomach ache before we went there. I don't have a stomach ache now. Me neither, I said. My stomach feels great. So we're free? He asked. Yeah, baby, I said. We're free. I backed out of the driveway. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I put the car in drive and headed toward the main road. The streetlights blurred past us. We were moving away from the toxicity. We were moving away from the judgment. Hey, I said, I'm starving. I didn't eat any of that roast beef. Me neither, Marcus said. It looked dry anyway. What do you say we get a pizza? I asked. A large. With extra pepperoni. And cheesy bread? Marcus asked, his eyes lighting up. And cheesy bread, I promised. And soda on a school night. Yes, Marcus cheered. He pumped his fist in the air. He looked like a 10-year-old boy again. He wasn't withdrawn. He wasn't a mess. He was just a happy kid going to get pizza with his mom. I drove through the night. The road ahead was dark, but for the first time in 4 years, I wasn't afraid of the dark. I knew where I was going. We got home 40 minutes later. Our apartment building wasn't fancy. It didn't have columns in the front. It didn't have a manicured lawn. But as we walked up the stairs, it felt like a palace. It smelled like our home. It smelled like laundry detergent and old books. I unlocked the door. We walked inside. I turned on the lights. The living room was small. There was a TV, a comfortable sofa, and a bookshelf overflowing with Marcus's comics and my novels. "Home sweet home," Marcus said. He kicked off his shoes and ran to the couch. "Wash your hands," I called out. "Pizza will be here in 20 minutes. I walked into my bedroom to change. I took off the dress I wore for my parents. I put on my sweatpants and an old t-shirt. I looked in the mirror. I looked different. My shoulders weren't hunched. My face wasn't tight with worry. I looked younger. I thought about Lauren. Right now, she was probably screaming at David. They were probably looking for things to sell. They were terrified of Tuesday. I felt a twinge of guilt, just a small one. I had the power to stop their pain. I could write that check. But then I remembered the smirk. Maybe if your son had 2 parents, he wouldn't be such a mess. The guilt vanished. I wasn't punishing them. I was letting them experience the reality they had created. I was letting them grow up. I walked back into the living room. Marcus was already setting up the movie. He had picked an action movie, something loud and fun. "Mom, come sit." He patted the spot next to him. I sat down. He leaned his head on my shoulder. "You know," he said, watching the opening credits, "I'm glad you have money." "Yeah," I asked. "Why? Not because we can buy stuff," he said, "but because you don't have to worry. I hate it when you worry." "I won't worry anymore," I said. "I promise." The doorbell rang. It was the pizza. We ate on the floor. We ate right out of the box. We drank soda. We laughed at the movie. It was a simple night. It was exactly the kind of night my family would look down on. They would say it was common. They would say it wasn't proper. But it was perfect. I looked around my small apartment. I realized that my family had been wrong about everything. They thought a big house made a happy family. They were miserable in their mansion. They thought money bought respect. They had no respect for anyone, not even themselves. They thought I was weak because I was alone, but I wasn't weak. I had carried the weight of their judgment for 4 years and I hadn't broken. And when the time came, I protected my son. I looked at Marcus. He had tomato sauce on his chin. He was laughing at a joke in the movie. He looked safe. That was the real win. Not the bank account. Not the look on Lauren's face. The win was this. The win was my son feeling safe in his own skin. I realized I had spent so much time trying to earn their approval. I wanted my mother to say, "Good job." I wanted my father to say, "I'm proud of you." I was never going to get that, and that was okay, because I didn't need it. I was proud of myself. After the movie, I tucked Marcus into bed. "Good night, superhero," he mumbled, half asleep. "Good night, Marcus," I whispered. I kissed his forehead. I walked to the front door of the apartment. I checked the lock. It was a sturdy lock. It kept the bad things out. It kept the good things in. I thought about my parents' house. The door was always open for appearances, but closed to love. My door was locked. Some doors in life don't need to be closed. You can leave them ajar just in case. But some doors. The doors that lead to pain, the doors that lead to people who make you feel small, those doors need to be locked. I turned the deadbolt. Click. I wasn't locking the world out. I was locking my peace in. I turned off the hall light and walked into the darkness, smiling. I had never felt lighter in my life.